Welcome to the Kels and Betsy podcast, where we are focused on raising capital and investing with purpose. So, whether you are a new investor, an experienced investor, or even a business owner, understanding the art of raising capital is crucial in today's competitive landscape. Join us as we navigate the complex realm of attracting investors, securing funding, and building meaningful relationships that fuel your business growth.
Hey.
Hey, welcome guys to another episode. Welcome to our channel, actually. I'm your host, Kalisha, and I have my beautiful co host, Betsy. Bruh, I can't get over your lights because they're so amazing. Like, makes me want to get like a whole studio and fancy up and all that stuff. But
I know. I'm dreaming too because I have to set up every time and then I have to like take it down, which is awful. And I have to make sure everything's charged because some things are wireless. And I'm just like, this is a lot, but I love it.
it's worth
Can't wait
it.
till we have our studio.
Listen, I think we need to do an episode talking about equipment because I've been getting that question a lot. That's for a whole new episode. Like the fact that you just mentioned that we always have to take down our equipment, set it up back, and do it all every single week. Yeah, we're gonna do one with you guys. But today we have a friend of mine. Man, we were talking a little bit earlier about the journey. It's crazy how things have changed within a year. Fellow member of or mastermind raising private money with Amy Missouri, and we have here guys today Danny Jimenez, all the way from California. We should do like the intro song.
Hello.
Oh
Yeah.
You should have the intro song ready.
yeah! Oh my
You guys
God!
can have it.
Welcome to the show. What's up?
Another beautiful day here in Long Beach, California. Trying to find some deals, trying to find some money, every day.
Well, thank you for joining us, Danny. We really appreciate your presence here, and I know that you're going to bring so much value to our listeners. Before we begin, we always like to start with our disclaimer here. The following information is for educational purposes only. Please do your own diligence. We do not provide financial, legal, or professional advice. Everything that we talk about is from our own experience. We're all investors here, so every case is different. Please talk to a professional advisor to advise you.
Exactly. So anything that we share, anything that Danny shares, just an experience. This is our opinion. We're not giving you guys any advice. And as Betsy said, like we have a team. So Danny, let's dive right in. Just share with our listeners or viewers because we're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So we have persons listening as well, even after. Just share with our listeners like your background, a little bit about your background and how your real estate investing journey began.
Okay, gotcha. So I first started off at Subway, ended up rising the ranks there to from sandwich artist to store manager. And then from there, I shifted over to security. I was there for about 10 years. Same thing, climbed up the ranks. I was a manager on my way out. I oversaw 40 officers. I was doing the scheduling. I was doing the uniforms. I was doing everything. And so it was around that time when I was doing about like 60-ish hours a week, when I kind of just paused and thought to myself, like, is this really what I want to do? And so I started looking at my superiors around me. They're older, they're more seniority manager, higher management positions. And it just didn't fit well with what I wanted to do. I always felt like there was something different about just me and like knowing where my path wanted to be. I wanted to be able to provide value to not only, the people around me, but just to society in general. So that's when, around the same time, towards the tail end of my security career, my fiance bought me the Purple Bible, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, and because I had been talking about it a little bit, I don't know how I stumbled upon the book, but I heard about it somewhere.
Yeah.
And so she surprised me for Christmas. She's like, "Oh, I bought you the book." So I finished it cover to cover in 2 days. And from there, I was just hooked. It finally, clicked for me. And I'm like, this is exactly what I was looking for in that thought in the back of my head. So after that became the due diligence as to, well, now I understand I want to invest, I want to create, do business. What does that look like? So I started to look into stocks. I started looking at crypto at the time. It was around that same time where Bitcoin was going through the moon. And so, yeah, I started to, start learning about investing and whatnot. And yeah, so sorry about that. Hold on. Give me 1 second. 1 second.
So get him right there. So while Danny, come on, it's just crazy that we're talking earlier, just the journey. And when I first met Danny in RPM, he wanted to learn how to raise private capital. And I mean, like he was, as he mentioned backstage, is that practicing his pitch to private money lenders. Like Danny was so nervous. If you saw his first deck that he had, that he was thinking of presenting to lenders, he was like freaking out. And we would like have practice sessions. Like we'll be on Zoom, going for hours with him, just practicing of how to pitch deals, how to answer questions if private money lenders ask. And just to see him crushing it right now, and he would put in our Facebook group, like, I've raised this amount of money, dude. I was like, holy snap, this dude is killing it.
Sorry
Just to
about
see
that.
girl, you're good. But just to see that growth, Danny, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
for sure. A bunch of action. And so, sorry, it's always putting out fires. I have my office here in Long Beach partner asked me a question, but we got that out the way. But anyways, to circle back,
Yeah.
I was looking at like investing strategies, and then I stumbled upon, I think, the Bigger Pockets podcast.
Mhm.
And then through that, I bought like 6 books. They got like a whole catalog of like 20 books of how to invest in real estate. I started learning. At first, the approach was rentals, because I think that's kind of where everyone starts. Oh yeah, let me get some rentals and I'll be good. And so I started learning about real estate investing, and I realized, well, if I get like one rental, or if I save enough money while I work, um, and I get one rental that cash flows maybe like $400 or $500, like that's going to take a long time for me to get where I want to be, right? To be able to provide and just get to the goals that I had. And so once I decided it was going to be real estate through the Bigger Pockets podcast, books, podcasts, YouTube videos, I had to decide on a strategy. So that's when I decided I wanted to flip. So the big problem was, well, I didn't have enough money to flip in California. And so then I started thinking, okay, well, how else can I find capital? How can I make this work? And so I realized, well, money's going to be the big problem for me, at least. And I think a majority of investors would say the same. And that's where, through listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, I heard Amy Majuri. And when she started talking about raising private capital, it was like, I found it.
Yes.
So I listened to, I think she did 4 episodes. I only listened to 3 of them. And then I was like, you know what? Let me figure this out. I started looking, her website up. I started doing more research. And so I was like, I talked to my fiance. I said, look, I need a couple grand. I need to get into this mentorship. She was kind of skeptical at first, but I was like, trust me, it's going to work. And so I joined RPM. I think that was the end of 2022. Was it around there ish? Maybe middle of the year?
Yeah, it would maybe about like September.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, September tail end, like towards the middle. And then once I started learning how to raise private capital, that was really what ended up taking the limiting belief that I had from the equation, right? Because I was like, okay, I know I want to flip. The process is simple, right? You got to figure out ARVs, all that whatnot. So that formula I understood. I just needed the capital part of it. And so once I joined RPM, I was able to make connections with Kalisha and a lot of other investors in the area. And just being in that type of community really changed everything. It's so, so true. You hear it like over and over again, and they talk about, oh, your network is your net worth. And before you're in it, you're like, yeah, whatever. But
Yeah.
once you're actually in it, you understand the true value of what having the types of access, like the fact that I could call Kalisha and Betsy like just any time of day, like that is so, I can't put a dollar amount of having that contact information. And so imagine having your phone full of that, and it's just incredible what having a good network can do. So yeah, that's kind of how my journey started. So it's been about 2 to 3-ish years of kind of like learning about from when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad up until today. So I currently reside in Southern California, and that's where I primarily do my flips. I look to buy in Orange County, LA County, Ventura County, and I have a current flip right now in Chatsworth that we should be getting on market at the end of next week. So finally getting to the finish line.
Was that one you use private money for as well, right?
Yes, correct. So that's my first actual deal. And so what I also want to mention is that for anyone that's thinking about how, oh, there's no way I could raise private capital. I've never done a deal. No one's going to trust me. I throw that out the window. That's impossible to say because I did it. I was able to raise on my first deal $273,000.
Walk us through that role. Like, tell us how did you find that PML? How did you pitch the deal? And how did you pitch even private money lending to that PML?
Right. So having access to the course really did help because I have, certain presentations and I was able to understand how to strategically look for private money lenders. But once I had a deal under contract, I knew, well, now I need to raise the money and I only have like 28 days to do it. Yeah. And so throughout this time before I had the deal under contract, I had already had built a network of potential private money lenders because I started, once I knew I wanted to invest and I knew I needed private capital, I started letting everyone know that I'm a real estate investor. So I texted literally every single person on my contacts. They got a text from me. It didn't matter if I hadn't talked to them in 10 years, they got a text from me. Same thing for people on my Instagram, Facebook, you name it. I was blasting it out there. Another big thing for me was even though I didn't have a deal, I knew that I needed to put myself out there. So I started posting a lot on Instagram. I just, posting like if I was underwriting a deal, just posting about it. Passive real estate investing information. I was just throwing it out there. So people knew that that's what I do now. So once it came time to finding the capital, I was fortunate enough to reconnect with who's not my now partner, someone that I went to high school with. So he's my builder. He has a framing construction company. And so when I told him about the opportunity, because this was before we partnered up, he's like, dude, I got some money and I'm also down to partner. I'll do the construction part and I want to park some money in there. So luckily to have that connection, I was able to get from that, I think it was $52,800. So that was one. Then we still needed about roughly, $220-ish thousand. So through RPM, I used the community that had already built, or the friendships that I had built, like with Kalisha, Betsy, and whatnot. So I blasted it out to my local network of investors and said, hey, I have a deal under contract. Would you happen to know anyone that would be interested in passively investing? So sure enough, I was able to get someone who reached out to me and said, hey, I have someone that wants to park $100,000, but still you need to explain the deal to them. You still have to walk them through the process because they know me, but they don't know you. Yeah. So sure enough, I remember the morning before, I was nervous as heck because I was like, I've done it before, but I don't know why. I still got a little nervous. So at the time, I was still staying at my mom's. And so there's a lot of kids at the house. And I'm thinking like, dude, I can't do this presentation in this house. So early morning, that morning of the call, I run to a Starbucks. And even the Starbucks is loud. I'm like, dude, this is a mess. This is not going to happen. But I'm like, whatever, dude. I've already committed. It is what it is. I just got to show up. And so I walked through the presentation and she asked a couple questions. And I felt very confident because I had ran through that scenario so many times. I practiced with Kalisha, my presentations, and many other people within my sphere. I would just say, hey, you got 15 minutes. You want to just let me do my thing and then ask me questions if you have any and let me know what you think, if you have any feedback. So when it came down to it, I felt some level of confidence. And I do think that's very important when talking to a private money lender, because if they do ask you a question, you can't just be like, and even if you don't know the answer to it, you have to know how to like kind of delay that answer, right? How to shift to say without saying, I don't know that answer, but let me get back to you, right? That's a great question. Let me talk to my network. I'll get back to you within 24 hours versus just kind of stuttering and sitting there. But that takes repetition, right? You get mastery through repetition. So that was really something that helped me. But towards the end of the call, I answered all her questions, and then we got off the phone. She said she'd let me know within the hour. She's like, "All right, I got 100,000. Let's do it." And
so you got 52, then you got 100. So that you're not short on an extra 100. How did you get that?
Yeah, like 110. So there was two other investors that I got. So there was an investor that I got for 90,000. And so that connection was made through my builder. So obviously he understood that we were leveraging hard money and private money, and he knew that we still needed roughly about $110,000 to do the deal.
Yeah.
And so I just let him know, hey, is there anyone within your network that you think might be interested? Obviously, I would carry that conversation because that's kind of my specialty. He's more construction. I know how to talk about private capital and all that. So he sent a couple feeler texts out, and actually another high school friend that has some properties in Ohio just sold like 3 or 4 of them. And he's like, oh,
Wow.
what a coincidence that I do have some capital laying around. Everything is nuts, like how it all works out. It's crazy. But so he said that he had some money. He said he had over 100,000, but he felt safe giving us 90. I mean, he's like, let me do my first deal, and then if it all goes well, I'll give you everything, because I mean it makes sense.
Yeah.
So after that text message, like we just kind of like really soft feeler text. I don't want to go too much in depth through text, because I want to be able to talk to them and see how, their body language, their tonality. And so anyways, we scheduled a coffee meeting like a couple days later in downtown LA. We met up. He asked his questions. I provide the documentations that we protect, secure, and insure their investment with. I always tell him, hammer me with the questions. Like, I love it because it makes me practice. And I know the answers. Just ask. Don't be shy. I want you to go into this investment knowing 100% what's going on.
And
So
for this,
go ahead.
And for this particular deal, since it was so many lenders that you brought in, how did you protect your investors?
So everyone receives their promissory note. That's standard, and right there is going to have all the terms and conditions as to their investment. Right, it's going to have the address of the investment, the interest rate that we're agreeing to, the duration of the note, and the principal that they're putting into the deal. So that's number one. Number two, they're going to get the deed of trust, and that's kind of where they're going to get a lien recorded against the property, and that's where it gets not tricky, but you have to kind of strategically place your lenders in order based on what they're committing to the deal. So because, like you mentioned, I have about 3 lenders on the deals, because my partner didn't care really for the lien position because he's part of the deal anyways. The 3 lenders that we categorized them based off of their commitment. So obviously for our deal, we used hard money, and hard money always takes first position. That's just kind of the standard. So they occupied that. We had a lender at 100,000. So she came in at second position. The lender I was just telling you about right now committed 90. He came in at third position. And then lastly, we had an investor at 20,000, and they came in at fourth position.
How do you handle that conversation? To say, hey, you're going to be in this lien position.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that was something that came up. Someone had asked me. This was actually a lender that hasn't committed yet, but we were just kind of going through preliminary conversations, and they said, "Well, I have like 100,000, but I don't want to be anything other than first position." And I said, "Okay, well, the only way for me to make that work is you need to give me more money than my hard money lender would, because it doesn't make sense for me to give you first position if my hard money lender is giving me 400 grand."
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the workaround that I just tell them, like, look, I'm in California, the market that I buy in. I mean, it's a high capital, high raise. I need a lot of money to do these deals. And so in order for me to get you in first position, you need to give me more money than my hard money is going to do. And that's really the only way we can do that. Another thing that kind of helps is we sign personal guarantees and with the house as collateral. And that's something that usually ends up easing their mind about it being in second position. We say, okay, we'll give you second position, but we'll also give you personal guarantee on top of the promissory note and being on our insurance.
So what about the persons who are in the third and the fourth lien position?
So that's just something that they haven't had an issue with. At least for me right now, the 2 lenders that were in third and fourth, they kind of knew. I mean, this hard money's in first at 400, second's at 100. The third position was like, all right, I get it. I mean, he was really easy to work with. Some lenders are gonna like hammer you like every single detail. What finishes are you using? Dude, this guy, I'm not even lying to you. I swear. He signed. We did everything. And I'm like, all right, man. So I'm gonna let you know how Arapaho goes. This man told me, what the hell's Arapaho? Dude, Arapaho was the street, like that was the house. It was on all the documents. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Like, so this is the house, blah, 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 blah. So he signs everything. And I tell him, okay, I'm gonna keep you updated on Arapaho. And he says, what the hell's Arapaho? So this guy, like, like he didn't even, I don't even think he read anything. I think he was just like, yep, all right. So it just depends, depends the lender. Lucky for him that I'm a good guy and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna run off. But
what I'm picking up is that you're very transparent.
Yeah, for
in
sure.
with the amount of lenders, because that's one question where lenders will be like, okay, this price you're gonna need 200K. If that person's coming with 100 and I'm coming with 50, where are you getting the remaining balance? And then when you explain all of that, I think that it makes it easier for you to explain the lien positions as well, for them to really understand these are the risks. But the bonus that you did is giving them the personal guarantee.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
it also depends on the lender as well. What I'm noticing is like some people don't want anything past second position, and so I have to be mindful of that when I'm looking at specific deals and specific raises to see if I could fit them in that specific deal. Because if they only have 50,000 and I need 300 and they only want second position, well, they're not going to work for that deal. That's not going to work. So every lender is different, right? Some lenders don't care if they get 8% ROI. Some people want minimum 15. So it's just relative to what is that lender looking for, and how can I piece them together in the puzzle, basically.
no, that makes sense. Like I know, like with like going back a little bit when you just started raising, you went in on some marketing strategies to find PMLs. Talk a little bit about what you did for outreach to find PMLs and how is your lead system set up.
Gotcha. Okay, so obviously, I reached out to my local sphere, people I already knew, and then once I did that, now I'm like, okay, well, I have to find other people because I already know so many. So what I started doing is I did a LinkedIn outreach. So I'd go on LinkedIn and I would just message like whatever the max was on LinkedIn. I think it's like 100 something a week. No, yeah, I think it's about 100 something a week that you could connect with. So I started just blasting people on LinkedIn and trying to find people who were from the real estate space and then outside of the real estate space. So because the way I saw it was, I feel like most people who are in real estate, like they have their own deals and they're not really trying to give their lenders to me. So I was like, I kind of started thinking outside the box, and I'm like, you know what? Let me start reaching out to like doctors, people who work for the city, and that actually had really good success doing that, and just trying to provide value and get in intro calls. So that's my number one source of finding new PMLs is through LinkedIn outreach. And then secondly, actually there's three things. Secondly, I'll go to meetups. So I've been like these past couple of weeks, I've been going to a lot more real estate meetups, entrepreneurial meetups, any space where I think I can provide value and just expand my network, right? Because again, like we mentioned, the connections are everything. So just trying to shake more hands, be in more people's phone book or vice versa, have more people on my contacts. So going to meetups has helped for sure. And then lastly, I do have a shirt from RPM that says it's basically like you're a walking billboard. It says like something along the lines of
Ask me how to earn double-digit returns on your money.
There we go. So when I know, it's funny, my fiance laughs every time I do it. Every time we go somewhere public and I know there's going to be people, I wear the shirt. I'm like, hey, I never know. We're always one connection away from changing your life. And I'm like, dude, I'm wearing the shirt. And it helps. Some people will ask you, like, well, what do you mean by that?
Your hat too, Danny.
Oh yeah, my cash flow hat. I should have wore it today. I'm looking a little dingy, but yeah, my cash flow hat as well. I noticed some people will kind of do a double take, and then be like, oh, you invest. So it's similar to the same way if I ever see someone with the two on their head, like the hat, the sub two hat, instantly, because I know right away. Oh, they invest. There must be something in real estate, and I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna talk to them. So it's the same thing, just easily identifiable. See, there you go. I'd go right up to you if I didn't know you. So yeah. LinkedIn
No.
outreach, meetups, and being a walking billboard, basically.
And do you still do LinkedIn?
Yes, every day. Oh, so like I said, there's a max, and it's a weekly max. So I figured I figured it out. I was kind of testing to see if there's like a daily limit on how many invites you can do. So it's not a daily limit; it's a weekly limit. So instead of doing 25 messages a day, now I just do it one day for like takes me like an hour to send out all the messages. But yes, I do that every single week.
And
Still.
this is with the LinkedIn premium membership.
Correct. Yeah, I have to pay for it's like $70 a month. But I mean, I'll pay what's that year? That's like $840 a year. I mean, if I get one lender off of it, I'll pay $840 to get access to 100,000 every day of the week.
Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
worth it.
Yeah.
It's like what I call it infinite returns. Like there's no way of capping it, and you find a lot of persons on LinkedIn, because a lot of persons sleep on it. Like because you have so many of the robots and all that stuff. But as Danny mentioned, is really just finding the right persons to message. That's gonna be key. Like you can't message other real estate investors. You can't message hard money lenders because now I get a ton of messages from hard money lenders. 'Cause I have capital in my bio, and I had to switch it out with the raising private
Oh,
because then they're targeting me. So I start adjusting as I go along based on the responses. So that's something to be super mindful for. So with all the success with raising capital, like have you encountered like a major obstacle where like, holy crap, I need to figure out a way how to work around this. Either it's the finding PML or the common objections that PML have or raising a certain amount of money. Like have ever been any form of obstacle that you've been encountering?
yeah. So going back to when we were looking for the money for the deal, so I think we needed like we needed just over like $60,000 to close, right? Because we that $273,000 that I raised was for that percentage of down payment, escrow, title fees, construction, holding. It was everything. Because we went into that deal, or I went to that deal, zero money out of my own pocket. So we had 28-day escrow, and I'm not even lying to you. The day before, so we had his my partner's $52,800 into the deal, but we still needed more to close, which was at like 60-ish grand. And so up until that point, literally the day before, I didn't have any capital. I was like, dude, and mind you, this was a 10% non-refundable EMD. So if we didn't get the closing funds, his 52,000 was gone. It was done. So we're sitting there and we're just like, how are we gonna do this? Like this is not gonna work. Like whatever. That's when we Hail Married, and I told him, dude, because I had reached out to my immediate network and I didn't get any response back. Or I got some soft commitments, but when it was time to go, they were like, I don't know. So that's when he reached out to his network. The guy was like, dude, let's do it. No. So let me backtrack. So this was like 2 or 3 days before we were supposed to close,
Yeah.
because then we scheduled the coffee meetup with him with his contact. Like a day or two later, he signed, and we're like, oh my gosh, like we're gonna close. We're gonna be able to close, even though it was a celebration. I'm like, dude, I still need to get like another 120. And so it was a short celebration, because when we got the funds wired, we were able to close.
Yeah.
And then through that, I was able to again reconnect with people that I had initially reached out to when I first got the deal under contract. Because mind you, now it's been over a month, and I said, hey, we still need more capital. We already have this much amount because we had 90 plus is 52, so we had 140 already.
Yeah.
So, and I think that probably helped, because now I could say, hey, I already got 140. I'm only looking for 120 now. And so that's when I was able to get that other investor at 100, and then the last investor at 20. So
was there any objections from that lender?
Which one?
Terms of the one with the 90, because you needed that money to close. Was there any objections for him to be like, you need this money like 2 days, I need time to review paperwork?
Yeah. So mind you, this was the guy who, when he signed, he had no idea what the property is. So it was the same guy. So I don't know. It divine intervention. I don't know, call it what, but he did still have objections though, because obviously we were like, hey, we close in like 2 days or 3 days, and we need the money kind of ASAP. So obviously he did kind of come off a little like, how do I know this is not a scam? And so when we met up with him, I brought him like what the deed of trust would look like that we would be recording with the county. I showed him the promissory note and then an example of what being added to the insurance would look like. And so we went over it, and I had him ask me questions. And now in retrospect, I don't even know if he really cared, but because I'm telling you, it was mind blowing to me that he didn't know what the street or the address was. Like, how do you just signed $90,000? You don't know what you're sending that to?
You know, I love that you brought up that you showed a sample of what the documents would look like.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, some most time persons, they don't know what it is, but just to see like, oh, this person is really serious. They're ready. They know. It gives like so much peace of mind. Like you don't even know. He doesn't care what's on the document, but at least you're asking him stuff and you have things in place.
Right.
Yeah, you're building that credibility and trust.
Right, absolutely. Because like one of his things was like, oh well, what if you like just went off to Mexico and I never hear from you again? I'm like, well, that's why you have this deed of trust, sir, because it's recorded with the thing. And so that it's good to have that on deck, because if they do have those objections, like, well, what if that or what if this, you have the documentation to show. And I think one of the main things when it comes to raising private capital is like to know your stuff, right? To really understand what it is that you're getting yourself into, because like the way I see it is like I'm putting someone's retirement money into a deal. Like I want to make sure I know exactly what I'm doing when it comes down to properly securing their investment and knowing that it is a good investment. So I think that definitely played a role in getting the funds at the end of the day is the confidence when I spoke to them, articulating the transparency part of it, just like, look, this is exactly what the deal looks like. These are the exact documents that we're going to use.
That is key to your confidence. Like they can always hear it in your voice. Like even you mentioned earlier, like when they ask you a question, if instead of freezing, like just the way how you respond, just the way how you explain things, they can pick things up. Like they might not have a clue have an idea what you're talking about, but just hearing how confident you are and explaining things, they're like, okay, this person seems legit. They understand what is it that they're doing. So those are some valid points. So practice. Won't be perfect. We'll just have to practice in raising capital, practicing pitching, and listening to our podcast and hearing how other investors are doing things. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I can't even count how many hours I listen to podcasts. Like I mean, I still do, but the education. Go ahead.
They underestimate the value of podcasts.
Oh yeah. So I don't listen to music no more. I just hop into podcast.
Yeah. At the gym, podcast. Bigger Pockets. I'm now listening to this one, Making Billions. It's with Ryan Miller. I met him at the fund launch event.
Okay.
Thing is just a whole different level, because then you're hearing how fund managers are raising capital, billions of dollars for their fund. And it's like you get creative, because you're like, okay, I can take this strategy and raise capital here, even if it's just raising for 100K. So podcasts are key. Like
you want to know something funny? So I'll mention this. I was listening to, I can't remember if it was the TTP podcast with Brent Daniels. It might have been Jamil's podcast. It was one of those. It was either Pace, Jamil's, or Brent Daniels. And sorry, it was with Jerry Norton and Pace Morby. Now I remember. So Jerry asks Pace, like, oh, if you had to explain to the audience what's the difference between private money and hard money, what would you say? So he says, like, hard money is like, you're tiling, you have the tile on the ground. The tile is, hard money. You can't really conform it. They have regulations, and they have certain criteria that they have to follow when it comes to what they could lend on. And private money is like the ground. You could shape and mold that. It's very malleable as to what you need it for. It could be for holding costs, construction costs. The term length can be whatever you want it to be. Interest rate can be whatever you want it to be. And so the reason I bring that up is because if I hadn't heard that a couple days ago, I wouldn't have been able to use that the following days when I had another private money presentation when um, that private money lender was like, oh, so can you explain to me the difference between hard money and private money? And when they asked that, I was like,
That's
oh, let me tell you. So even
Give
now,
the story.
yeah, even now, given that I've already raised, over $250,000 on a deal, like there's still so much I can learn, and that's why, like, I always still listen to Pace, still listen to Jerry Norton, Amy, like everyone, because you never know where there's a nugget in in a podcast where you're like, oh, okay, I could use that for this strategy, or when I talk to another private money lender, and so yeah, there's so much value in continuing the education.
So definitely, guys, like, whoo, Danny, damn, this was so good. This is like, thank you for keep going in details with everything that we spoke about, because we like to share not the good stuff, but really how are things being done, like broken down, because everyone always hear about you can raise capital, you can get a deal zero out of pocket, but persons want to know how, like truly how. And you
Right.
went in depth with the LinkedIn, the membership, like for our overthinkers, you went in how many messages you're sending per week,
Yes.
the numbers, which is good, and we appreciate it. Like, but we, honey, like, I'll give you a hug right now,
Virtual hug.
virtual hug.
You're on the other side of the country.
Listen, like, personally for me, I just love seeing your growth.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing to just watch you change under a year, like a little, still a little under a year, still not even a
Yeah,
year.
yeah, not even a year in yet. So
It's not even a year yet, but just to see how you have transformed, just taken action, and you realize within yourself that okay, you are the one blocking with analysis paralysis, and that's fine because we get it. I got it when I just started. But you just decided I need just to go. I need to go in, take action because that's how I'm really gonna learn, and you did that. So
right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all about action. It's you got to do. And if there's anyone that's listening to this podcast or watching this, like I am living testimony that if on your first deal you can raise capital, you just got to educate yourself. There's a way to do it. Zero money down. Like I don't want to hear the objection no more. I did it, so it's possible. And if there's any value I could bring to anyone listening to the podcast, I'm always happy to help. I think at this point, though I'm not nowhere where I need to be or where I want to be, if there's anyone struggling with their first deal or looking to raise capital, learning how to, I owe it to the community to show others how they can do it too. And I'm happy to be a resource for anyone looking for some help.
yeah, no,
Well, thank you, Danny. Thank you for coming on here. I know that we really, really do appreciate. We like seeing your face, and I know our listeners are probably, no, they are very appreciative too. So whether you're looking to finance your next project, launch or expand your new business, we hope that this episode gave you some insights, strategies, and tips so you guys can raise capital and invest with purpose. See you guys next time.